Hello everyone and welcome back to your weekly PlayStation podcast, Talking the PS, where we round up all of your weekly gaming and PlayStation news for your listening or viewing pleasure right here on youtube.com/Helix Plays Games, and up there in the digital clouds on your podcast preference of choice. You join myself, Chris, this week alongside my two beautiful co-hosts, the ever-returning man of many pixels, Mr. Richie.
Hello.
And below him, our chaotic neutral, with a fixed, repaired, fully functioning microphone, Rob, welcome back.
Hello.
I'd love if you said hello.
Wrong show, Rob. Wrong show.
And it muted and we couldn't hear you. And we had that horrible workaround again. But we are here, fantastic people, for another great episode of all your PlayStation news. Don't forget, if you haven't done so already, like, subscribe, and click that bell so you're kept in the loop with all the great content we do here, like our live streams, Let's Plays, First Looks, and all of our other juicy podcasts. If you want to become a member of the channel and support us an extra little bit more, you can do by clicking join below on the YouTube video. Follow that link and you'll find all the special surprises awaiting you. We've got a great show lined up for you all this week, talking about February's PlayStation Plus games. They leaked, but they've been since confirmed. We've got PlayStation Plus Collection collapsing in on itself, Jedi Survivor being delayed, Ubisoft announcing some new games, and PlayStation rolling in the cash right now. We've got a great show lined up for you all. Before we do get into it all, though, don't forget to check out our latest show that's up there, the ClickerCast, our weekly The Last of Us review program. We're here for a fantastic PlayStation show. But before we get into all the news, we always talk about what we've been playing. So, Rob, over to you. What have you been playing?
A lot of God of War.
Ragnarok? Or OG?
No, Ragnarok, that's the thing. So the issue is I'm trying to work through the 2018 God of War. Just because I need to refresh myself on the story, and if I'm gonna be honest, I'm not super into it. It's a fantastic game and everything's great about it, but I just want to play Ragnarok, so I'm just trying to
power
push
through
myself through it.
Right, it's not a case of I'm not into this game, I don't really get why people are into it. It's just like, I want to play Ragnarok, but I need to get through this first, because then by doing this first, Ragnarok will be even better.
100%, yeah. That's all I'm doing. So, it's what it is, but I'm enjoying it for what it is, but I want to play Ragnarok now.
You've also just came off the back of Ghost of Tsushima, which is a very different game. Obviously, still tells an amazing story in third person, but it's a lot more, I'd say, open to fighting, whereas the linear aspect of God of War does restrict you somewhat, whereas Ghost of Tsushima just go out there and have chaotic fun in between story beats. And
yeah, definitely.
I think the combat, even though the combat in both is ultra satisfying, it's very different at the same time. I think pivoting from one to that must be quite jarring, because Kratos is a big hulking god who's slow, but obviously he can destroy whatever he needs to, whereas Jin Sakai is very much more specific, accurate, lean, quick, and it's so contrasting the fight styles.
Yeah, and the issue is the dodge button is different on both games, so I'm constantly getting hit in God of War, constantly.
We've been there. I think when I started playing, going from Assassin's Creed Odyssey and Red Dead Redemption, when they both came out, I think the climb on the horse button in one is slice the horse in half in the other one. So there's many a times I'd go to climb the horse and just decide, no, I'm going to hack at you with my sword instead. But speaking of Ghost of Tsushima, that's what me and Richie played this week on our weekly live stream. We jumped into Ghost of Tsushima Legends. Have you dabbled in Legends at all?
No, unfortunately not. So I really wanted to, and kind of hop into the live stream with you guys, but it just wasn't kind of timing-wise. It didn't kind of work up. But no, it looks like great fun. I'll try hop in at some point. But I think I need to commit to God of War for a bit now.
Yeah, there is always time. Over to you then, Richie. Aside from Ghost of Tsushima this past Thursday, you been playing anything yourself?
By the time this goes out, I will have played a bit more Last of Us, but I haven't had a chance yet, since we're actually recording earlier in the week than we usually do, just because we've got some drinks to consume tomorrow at the time of recording. So, and my hangover will probably be playing a bit more of The Last of Us. Other than that, it's been quite a bit of FIFA, actually.
Ooh, just chipping away. You're nice little in the middle.
I think because it's the transfer window's just ended, so I was like, yeah, I want to do the whole career mode, build my own squad kind of sort of stuff. So I was like, yeah, but so I've just been dabbling in career mode.
Absolutely.
Again, there hasn't been a single game recently that's kind of I've really sunk my teeth into. So I'm just kind of dabbling with a few different bits.
Dabble. Well, we've got plenty of games to play and check out imminently because your February PlayStation Plus games are on the line. So let's get into that, gents. Let's start talking about PlayStation Plus for this month. Rob, if you could do us the honours of introducing us to
the properly prepared PlayStation perusing points, aka the news.
The news.
Yeah, you got us with that one. Plenty of news stories this week. February's PlayStation Plus games. Story number one, as I mentioned, we got from the PlayStation blog a bunch of titles. What I want to do is, rather than, because there's such a busy show as well, with plenty of news to talk about, I don't want to do what we traditionally do, is just delve into them one by one, because I think we're well aware that some people like one or two games, others don't mean anything. So I'll run through the list and then we can just basically pick our favourites out and talk about them. So we've got Evil Dead, the game, which I don't think it's that old actually. I believe it came out about 8 months ago. We've got Ollie Ollie World, small little indie title for PS5 and PS4. We've got Destiny 2 Beyond Light for PS5 and PS4. And Richie, we've got Goddamn Mafia Definitive Edition coming to PlayStation Plus, which I know our long-term fans of the channel and specifically Stadia fans are well aware that I have a long ongoing, I don't know what I'd even call it now, Richie. I was going to say relationship, issue, problem, scandal, resentment towards this. For old time's sake, though, Richie, Mafia Definitive Edition was teased to be releasing on Google Stadia 996 days ago. And then it relaunched on all of the platforms 861 days ago. And yet we're still somehow yet to see it on Stadia. But that joke will keep going on beyond.
I think what you should do, I think you should tweet at them.
I did on the last day.
No, I should do it now. It's
right now.
I just seen you come to PlayStation Plus as a comment to Stadia.
Yeah, when's it arriving, you liars? So I personally will not be playing Mafia, just out of pure spite. Out of those games that are listed, gentlemen, of course, this is what's claimable. You can keep it forever as long as you got your subscription on all tiers, available to download on. Anyone particular stand out for you, Richie?
Actually, no. I think this is a very missable month, to be honest.
Not even Ollie Ollie World? You are our resident skateboard expert with your kickflips and your grinds. I don't know. It just doesn't grab me as like a 2D kind of like side scroller thing. It's just like, yeah, it's more of like a 2D platformer that just happens to be with skateboards. It's probably cool enough, but like, yeah, there's none of it. Like Destiny 2, I like Destiny well enough, but I have no interest in really getting into it. Mm-hmm.
Evil Dead doesn't really do anything for me. And Mafia, I don't have the same like relationship with Mafia as you do, but I wasn't even particularly interested that much when it was seemingly coming to Stadia.
Mm-hmm. I'm like a Scotland
lover.
Mafia.
I think if I had to grade this month, it's a C.
Oh, because a lot of outlets are saying it's quite a good month, I think, specifically because Ollie Ollie World
For
and
me,
Evil Dead.
I don't think that any of these are bad games. I'm just not interested in them.
Yeah, it's an interesting world we live in with subscription models, and we'll talk about that later on the show regarding MLB The Show, and the kind of value of it and what it's perceived as now. I know Ollie Ollie World in particular is probably the more indie title of this month's selection. Would you give it a go? Because it reminds me of what's the Ubisoft game that we had a good laugh playing on stream, where you're in the BMX bikes and you go basically 2D left to right.
Like Trials Rising.
Trials, that's the games. Yeah, Trials Rising, but with a skateboard. That kind of seems to be the vibe I get from Ollie Ollie World.
Maybe, and like if we were doing like a stream, like an anniversary stream or something, but to be honest, it just doesn't jump out to me as something I need to play.
I don't blame you. I think the biggest title of this month's selection is probably going to be Destiny, just because of the nature of what it is. Although, again, an interesting relationship with Destiny, because Beyond Light is, of course, one of the expansions, because the base game is now free to play, so PlayStation Plus players essentially just get to jump in on not one of the more recent ones. I believe Beyond Light is probably one of the old ones. We've had Lightfall since then, and Witch Guardian.
Like 2 years ago?
Witch Guardian? What was it called? But either way, yeah, it's an interesting one for that one. Destiny 2. Rob, either of these do anything for you?
I think for me it has to be Ollie Ollie World, and that's quite like a low bar as well. Like the Evil Dead game, like reviewed pretty well, and it looks kind of fun, but that kind of overcrowded zombie kind of shooter type of game is overcrowded at the moment. Like you've got too many titles kind of occupying that same area, so
that asymmetric one person hunts the other people. Yeah, we've got Dead by Daylight and Friday the 13th, haven't we? Mixed in with some other titles. Have either of you two watched the Evil Dead movies? Like Ash the Evil Dead? Like, I know it's quite got a cult following.
I watched like the original. I like that for what it was, but I'm like
I think I saw the originals as a kid.
yeah, but like I think Rob Zombie did the remakes. Like no, I'm not kind of feeling those ones. But yeah, as Richie said, like objectively it's a pretty strong month, especially if you're a Destiny fan. But it just doesn't do much for me at all.
But if you're a Destiny fan, you probably already have Beyond Light.
Yeah, true. So yeah,
absolutely.
So the Destiny one is kind of a bit of a weird one for me, because if you're new to Destiny, okay, maybe you can just jump straight into the Beyond Light content, but chances are you either want to play through the original content to learn the game or go to the newest content that people are actually playing. So Beyond Light is that kind of weird in-betweeny one. It's like anytime I talk about MMOs, I got World of Warcraft, like once the next expansion comes out, no one's really playing the old stuff apart from to just blast through it to get to level up.
yeah.
I don't think that's really the case in Destiny though, so it's like, yeah, I don't think any of these are bad games by any stretch of the imagination. It's just none of them. Like, I read the list and go,
yeah, and that's kind of what brings us on to the bigger topic at hand. When we discuss Game Pass and what Xbox is doing, and we discuss PlayStation Plus and their new tiers, I think even after now, 7-8 months, the PlayStation tiers don't seem to be landing with as much impact as probably everyone had hoped, even though later on in the show we'll talk about the metrics and how they've actually improved subscriber numbers. At the end of this blog post for this week, though, moving away from the PlayStation Plus games for the month, Sony took away a little tiny message at the bottom of this blog post, and I want to read straight from it. It's kind of story number 2 is, we also wanted to provide an update on the PlayStation Plus collection that has been offered as a benefit to PlayStation Plus members on PS5 since 2020. On May 9th, the PlayStation Plus collection will no longer be offered. If you haven't redeemed the titles in the collection yet, you can still do so before May the 9th, which will enable you to access those titles even after this date, as long as you remain a PlayStation Plus member. So for those who weren't in the know, the PlayStation Plus collection was essentially, if you bought a PlayStation 5, you got access to probably just short of 20 games immediately from the back catalogue of PlayStation titles, specifically PlayStation 4. Some absolute big hitters, some phenomenal games in that list. And I guess it was a way to encourage people who maybe hadn't had a PlayStation 4 that generation to move on board and suddenly get a slew of titles that were bangers for PS4. And more importantly, to encourage people to just try out some games that they've never checked before from a great library. Rob, you've just picked up a PS5 for the first time, so in theory, this library has just became available to you now. Does this being taken away ring negatively for you, or is it because obviously you can still claim them now? But do you think it's odd that they're taking away these games, or is it just a reality that the licenses for some of the third parties are probably coming up?
I think it's a bit of a strange time to do it, because obviously the stock issue with PlayStation is kind of largely resolved now for the most part. And more and more people are getting kind of the consoles and things like that, and to take this away, which is like a fantastic kind of deal to have, like a great intro to PlayStation, especially for someone like me who kind of dropped out of the ecosystem for a couple of years. It's really, really strong, and it just makes the whole kind of PlayStation Plus kind of offering far, far stronger than it is without it. So the timing seems a bit strange for me, so you have to think it is license related.
Yeah, because obviously, just to clarify the games that are in there, the full list is Batman Arkham Knight, Battlefield 1, Bloodborne, Call of Duty Black Ops 3, Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy, Days Gone, Detroit Become Human, Fallout 4, Final Fantasy 15, God of War, Infamous Second Son, Monster Hunter World, Mortal Kombat 10, Ratchet & Clank, Resident Evil 7 Biohazard, The Last Guardian, The Last of Us Remastered, Uncharted 4 Thieves End, and Until Dawn. So there are quite a lot of PlayStation first-party exclusives, but there are a lot of third-party deals in to kind of pad it out, which, no surprise. Richie, what are your takes on this one?
My take initially was, this is a terrible move. Why would you do this, Sony? But then there's a line I'm going to read directly from a Push Square article. Only 3 of these titles are not part of the broader subscription, those being Battlefield 1, Call of Duty Black Ops 3, and Monster Hunter World. So only 3 of the titles on the PlayStation Plus collection you won't you don't have access to if you're at least a PlayStation Plus Premium member.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, I think that softens the blow quite a lot, in my opinion. I don't know which games you'll get on which tier, but if you are a PS Plus Premium member, you'll have access to all but 3 of the titles, and they are all third-party games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And actually, Battlefield 1, older game, probably not getting played a lot right now.
More than
Call of Duty
2042.
Black Ops 3, it probably suffers from the same issue. Monster Hunter World, there's new Monster Hunter games, so I think these are not like...
Yeah,
and again, because they're only free titles, if you really wanted to play these games, you still have the option to buy them.
that is true. Yeah, it's probably...
So that does soften the blow, but
Yeah.
it's still not ideal.
I think it's more just a sign of the times with... at launch, it was great because you got this library. Like, I haven't played some of these games. I claim them, so I guess in theory I have them indefinitely as long as I keep the PlayStation Plus subscription. But since then, the 3-tier model that was introduced last summer has kind of superseded this, right? If you are a monthly sub-member of PS Plus on most of the tiers, you'll have the majority of these games. So I think it reads right what you were saying there, Richie, of it initially looks bad because it looks like you're taking away 20-plus like stellar classic AAA titles. But at the same time, you already have access to most of them through PS Plus. So,
and if you've redeemed them, and as long as you have a PlayStation Plus membership of any tier, you have them.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And then this again goes back
So
to our conversation about subscription models and do we need all these one-off prices and such when actually just that monthly sub is getting you the majority of the value? And I think that's where both PlayStation, Microsoft, and Nintendo, they prefer people to be, by the looks of it, paying that monthly sub. So I think it's a bit cheeky adding it at the end of your blog post, like just one little paragraph. But then at the same time, is it that big of a story?
I think the thing that makes it a bigger story is how confusing the tiers are on PlayStation Plus.
They're not well defined at all.
Yeah,
this is like the PS Plus collection is something distinct and separate in its own right from all these other tiers. It's like it is super confusing because the big headline looks awful, and when I first saw it, I was like, "Shit, I'm gonna lose all these games." Because I'm a PlayStation Plus kind of. Which one's the top one? Extra
Premium.
Premium.
Yeah, whatever. So like, I've got that subscription, and like to me it looks like terrible news that I'm losing all these games. And I never read the full article. I don't read like the last line where it's like, oh, you still have these games on.
Yeah, you just see the top. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So,
but either way, it is happening. But as I mentioned, the silver lining is if you're a member, just go in there, claim the games, and just work your way through that list that I just read out. You can find it online and just go claim. Even if you're never going to play them, it's worthwhile having your library rotation. Just in the eventuality you get a scratch or an itch to go back to it, and you think, do I have this game? You go buy it, and it says already in your library. Like that's the happy coincidence.
The fact that most of the games are still going to be available to PlayStation Plus members anyway means that it's just making it more obscure to like access them rather than having this like PS Plus collection menu, which is effectively just cataloging them. Now you're gonna have to go finding them, but you're not actually losing access. You're just making it harder for people to access them.
But it's one of those things. If you wanted to go hunt them
weird.
out, you could hunt them out. Like let's face it, if you wanted to play Batman Arkham Knight, like people are smart enough nowadays to go search for it and find it in the storefront. And if it's in the library, great. If it's not in the library, great, doesn't matter, buy it for probably £10, whatever it is, for the whole Arkham collection. But moving on, speaking of big headlines that catch your eye and make you infuriate for a brief short period before realising it's not too long of a wait. Story number 3, Jedi Survivor, the sequel follow-up from Respawn and EA, following Jedi Fallen Order, the majorly successful Jedi Fallen Order, we should point out, was set to come out March 17th. However, it's been delayed by 6 weeks as the studio opted to postpone the game in order to hit the studio's quality bar, according to a statement released on Twitter earlier this week. And I'll read direct from the statement once my internet catches up with me. Jedi Survivor. For the last 3 years, the Jedi team here at Respawn has poured its collective heart and soul into Jedi Survivor, and we're proud to say that the next chapter in the tale of Cal Kestis content is complete. So we're now focused entirely on the final stage, bug fixes to enhance performance, stability, polish, and most importantly, the player experience. Thanks to EA and Respawn for giving us the time to deliver the best experience for our players, and to all of you for understanding. May the Force be with you. And Richie, what was the first thing we said? This has been delayed by a few short weeks, but what was the first thing you said to me?
I'm tempted to boycott this game because it's 6 days, guys. 6 days after the 28th of April. It's May the 4th.
Yeah, that's right. If they'd have waited just less than 1 week,
Give it
the game
one-
could have
yeah.
launched on May the 4th. Be with you. And instead, we've got a global launch of April 20th. So just a short while for bug fixes. I'm happy to wait. My only personal bugbear, I think I said to you as well, Richie, offshore the other day. Of course, my first child is due, or was due, on the 17th of March. And everyone who is a parent has told me that apparently newborn babies just sleep lots and sick plenty and shit everywhere, pretty much.
Sleep, shit.
Repeat.
Sleep.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I was told, you can just sit with them kind of laid on you and play games. And I thought, I've got a month off work, paternity leave. I've got a little baby who won't do anything. I'm going to play the shit out of Jedi Survivor. And now it's delayed until she's going to be up and about, going to university, school, working, and I'm not going to have any time being a parent. But either way, I digress for my own personal reasons. Delayed till April 28th when I've probably got grey hair and I'm tired and I've not got time for video games. But over to you two. What do you think of this delay? Is it that big of a deal? Is it 6 weeks extra polish critical? I've seen lots of industry experts bemoan Jedi Fallen Order having loads of bugs at launch, but I don't know what your experience was, Richie. I played through that full game, got the platinum, and didn't really find it that buggy at all. But every time this game comes up, people complain about how buggy and glitchy it was at launch, and I don't remember that at all.
I thought the camera controls were a bit clunky, to be honest, at times. When I played it, it took me a while to actually really get into it. I didn't love Jedi Fallen Order at first. I was kind of just like, I was a bit underwhelmed with how it felt to play, but I think either the patch I just kind of got a bit familiar with it. I did eventually grow to like it. But I think I remember saying, like, you and Tom loved the game.
Oh, yeah.
I kind of just quite liked it quite a lot.
Tom also owns 2 real-world lightsabers, we should point out, so he was going to love it.
Yeah.
It could have been a piece of shit, and he would have still loved this game.
I like Star Wars. I love Star Wars, but it's just like I really liked the game. I just wasn't quite in love with it. But I mean, I'm looking forward to this. This is probably a day one purchase.
Yeah. Prior to me pre-ordering Harry Potter, this was my kind of only game so far this year that I was definitively playing day one. How about you, Rob? Is the Force with you on this one?
It's fine. Like, anything I produce is the inevitable day one patch, which it looks like this is mostly focused on kind of bug fixing, and it's not like they're behind and they're kind of forcing it out. So no,
it's content complete.
Forcing it out.
Yeah. So I know it's fine. Like, I guess it does bring it a bit closer to Zelda territory, which maybe that's why they did delay it like much longer than they did. Because that would take it like a week or two, I think. Which
you don't want that Horizon Zero Dawn, all the oxygen being sucked. I know they're very different games, but so was Horizon and Zelda. All respects to what they actually look like. But yeah, it is a shame. May the 4th would have been a killer date to get this game out. It probably, you know what the reason they probably looked at that, like obviously people at EA and Star Wars looked at that date and considered it massively. All I can think is the dates don't line up for financial reasons, for whatever. Like you don't want to bring a game out on a Wednesday. They very rarely come out midweek. It's usually the end of the week or the start of the week. Or Star Wars already
that much nowadays.
No, I'm just thinking in the Star Wars realm, they have like Star Wars Day, don't they? And we usually get some kind of announcement. So maybe they've got something big in the pipeline to keep it away from it. Like, what if Ubisoft have something lined up to talk about Massive's Star Wars game, and then Jedi Fallen Order is launching the same day? There's that potential confusion. So there'll be a reason for it. But either way, I'm looking forward to it. Not too much longer to wait, and I think as adult gamers, a delay really doesn't bother us as much as it probably would have if we were teenagers and
if you
half-term want to play it.
If you're bothered by game delays at this point, you really need a bit of a reality check, because every game gets delayed for like years at this point. Like, we've just went through like a period of like 2 years of constant delays. If you're bothered by delays, I think you just need to get over the fact I'd rather a developer take the more time to bring out a better game than rush it to meet what is effectively an arbitrary date.
Bear in mind as well, this is like a AAA game and publisher, like, focused on releasing a polished game, which isn't always a given, like, these past couple of years, right? Like,
absolutely.
Yeah.
There's a lot of quality variation. Speaking of quality variation, though, let's move on to our next star of the week. We reported on it briefly last week. The Crew team over at Ubisoft. There was rumours and leaks coming that there was a game potentially about to be announced, and we were right. The Crew Motorfest has been confirmed. It's had a launch trailer drop coming to PlayStation, Xbox, and PC later this year. Ubisoft have confirmed the Crew Motorfest will be a new era for its open world racing series that will whisk players off to Hawaii. And specifics, it'll be a live service game, fairly limited for now, the details. It'll be a one-of-a-kind motoring festival, similar to Forza Horizon. It'll be tailor-made races, themed events, and unique challenges. What's so funny, Richie?
Sorry. A one-of-a-kind motor festival, similar to Forza.
Yeah, that's how it works. I thought you were laughing at me reading it. I was like, you try it.
No, it's just like, oh yeah, it's going to be one of a kind, but it's going to be similar to this other thing that exists.
All right, yeah, I can see how that's funny. Yeah, one of a kind, presumably like Forza.
Yeah.
Obviously, we cover this. We've seen it now. Personally, as someone who's only recently played Forza Horizon with our awesome community out there on a Thursday, and we've obviously played the Crew 2 in the past on stream, this looks quite good, this. Thoughts, Richie?
I enjoyed the Crew 2 a bit. It's not like my sort of like go-to game, but there again, driving games just aren't. But for what it is, I think there's a really good game in there. And if this is effectively Crew free, fine, good. It's a good thing. I like the fact that they're dropping the numbering system and just accepting that this is a live service game, because that means maybe you buy Crew Motorfest, which is better than Motorsport, in my opinion. Better title than what we talked about last week.
Motorstorm, we made up last week.
Motorstorm is better than Motorfest.
But PlayStation have copyrights.
Yeah. Anyway, as I was saying, it's just the fact that it's a live service means that they can just keep expanding and just keep this as a live game and keep going. Because some games I think do work quite well in that thing. I know a lot of gamers can be cynical with this stuff, but it's like, for me, if it suits the game, then do it.
Absolutely. We should say as well, just shout out to our cloud gaming audience out there. Also confirmed for Amazon Luna. Little sidebar from this one, but we always made a big deal about when Ubisoft supported cloud gaming, and it is there to behold. Rob, we know you like to dabble occasionally in some of the racing games. You did check out Need for Speed Unbound recently, after all. Where do you sit with the Crew? Are you in the driver's seat, or are you locked away in the boot?
There's only so much racing game I can take, and I think Need for Speed kind of scratched that itch for a while. The trouble is, I wish I was more into racing games, because there seems to be news on them every single week, and I wish I had more insightful things to talk about them, but...
Cargo fast.
Cargo fast, and then cargo fast in different branded box. That's the thing.
Yeah, and we've joked about it time and time again that racing games are racing. Don't get me wrong, they're absolutely beautiful. They showcase what video game engines can do. I think Ubisoft, they did mention this is going to run in the Snowdrop engine. So it's a little step up towards what they usually put the games out in. But we'll check it out possibly. Next story though, we'll move on. MLB The Show. It's one of those games that we don't really talk about, but here in the UK, we're not big baseball fans after all. But I did want to bring it up purely because of the Game Pass problem. And this game has a Game Pass problem that it's made by PlayStation First Party Studios.
Some might say it's a Game Pass solution.
Some might say it's not a problem. I'm sure we'll talk about it on yesterday's XPass episode. But MLB The Show, it's retailing, it's got its big announcement. They announced the cover celebrity. No idea who he is. Apologies to any baseball fans out there. This is the top tier baseball game out there. I'm sure it's massive in the United States. In fact, I know it's massive in the United States. One of the best selling games every single year. $69.99, it'll set you back. However, it's coming to Xbox Game Pass for free. It did last year, and it did the year before. Every year this title has been on Xbox since the MLB went to PlayStation and said, look, if you want to keep making this game, you want to use our official licenses, kind of similar to FIFA and EA argued about it earlier last year, it's the same scenario. And PlayStation went, no, we want to keep making the game. We've got our dedicated studio. We like using the franchise, one of our biggest franchises. We're happy to make it for Xbox. So PlayStation make this game for Xbox, and Microsoft, swinging that big dick Game Pass money around, go, you know what? Our Xbox players can have it for free. So a franchise that's had exclusive PlayStation players for the last 7 or 8 years now have the option to pay £70 for it on PlayStation or free on XPass, Game Pass. Every single year for the last 3 years. Does this, gentlemen, create a problem for subscription models in place. We touched on it at the beginning of the show, but this is just embarrassing, in my opinion, for PlayStation, that if you've bought this game for the last several years and you're a big baseball fan, to then see people who've never had access to this game get it for free 3 years in a row, essentially saving them nearly $200. You do start, if you're like a casual gamer who's just into sports games, like we have friends which you only have a PlayStation for playing FIFA. If you're that equivalent for baseball, why do you even have a PS5 when you might as well just get an Xbox and get your favorite and only game you're really interested in free every single year for a monthly sub, right?
Plus everything else,
and everything else that comes with Game Pass.
Yeah, I think if this was on PlayStation Plus, this conversation is completely pointless. But the fact that it's not, it's buy it outright or get it as part of a Game Pass subscription. If you were in the situation where you're comparing apples to oranges on the platforms, which one to invest in, if I'm interested in MLB, I'm going Xbox, because Game Pass, if you assuming that you're going to be buying the game every year, you spend less on Game Pass in the year and you'll get access to, well, you spend more on Game Pass in the year in total than if you just bought the game, but you also get access to everything that's on Game Pass. And this is not the sort of game where I think it has kind of a resale value as well. It's like,
it's time.
It's not the sort of game where you're going to play for, like, if you bought God of War Ragnarok, you could play it 2 weeks later, stick it on eBay for, like, I don't know, 40 quid instead of, and you've maybe lost 20 quid. Quick sale, you made you a decent amount of money back. This is the game you're going to be playing all year long. Yeah. So when MLB The Show 24 comes out, it's going to be worth pence.
Yeah, that's that's what makes it particularly bad for like sports titles and in this kind of, I guess, debate. But like the only argument I ever see people make about, like, in defense of like a price like this is like, oh yeah, well, like, I own the game, and like,
you don't, you own a license for the game.
Yeah, and like, and more and more you realize that kind of like, you don't own anything if, like, especially for like an online game like this, if like they decide to just shut down the server, like, there's no like bigger element to owning a game like this. So like, I just can't see like how Sony can keep going down this route for sports
even
titles.
If the servers aren't shut down this time next year when MLB The Show 24 comes out, the servers will be effectively dead for 23.
Yeah. I mean, it's also single player. A lot of people probably just do the career mode like we do with FIFA. So I don't think the online component's that much of a necessity.
Have you tried to play a year-old FIFA game? It's just wrong.
Yeah, I'm well aware that FIFA is one of the few games that I'm happy to buy digitally, because I don't need a shelf that has FIFA 11 through 23. Like it just it's like you said, it's a seasonal game. It's sports where it differs very, very differently to traditional games. But I just think it is an interesting one. I think this, to be honest, should be one that PlayStation bite the bullet on and make it a PlayStation Plus premium game. Just to show that parity and say, like, we Xbox players who are big MLB fans are not any lesser valued than our PlayStation players, and especially because it's made in-house.
And you can then use it. You can use it to sell PlayStation Plus.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Here's the counterpoint to that. Right. As far as I'm aware, there's like basically two places on the entire world that even care about baseball. There's the US and there's Japan.
Mm-hmm.
Like Japan,
where Xbox doesn't sell.
Yeah, right. So maybe they've just done the math there, and we're like, whatever.
I presume any game that is coming to Game Pass and isn't coming to PlayStation Plus, especially for third party, I'm assuming people that play Sony have sat down, have done the maths and went, we will make more money with our higher install base by just selling this.
Yeah. So
otherwise, they would put it on there. Really. Yeah. That's why you don't get first-party titles day and date on PlayStation Plus, because they've done the maths and realised they'd lose money by doing it that way.
I think it's a bit different for sports games like this.
Yes.
I think that's the key.
Yeah, I think that's a good point though, Rob, because I think to go back to the two countries who care about baseball, sorry any listeners out there who do care about it, we call it cricket over here. No, we don't really. It's the good point.
It's called stickball.
The good point for that is, again, in Japan, they're either going to have a PlayStation because it's, again, Japanese made and they've got heritage and that kind of loyalty fan base. It's also coming out on the Nintendo Switch because of this deal as well. Now, you do have to buy it full price on the Nintendo Switch. It's not included in their subscription. So you do guess you've got the lesser version on the Switch, you've got the top tier version on the PlayStation. Very few people in Japan own an Xbox. So I think you are right. And I guess when it comes down to finances as well, Microsoft must give them a fair chunk of money to get it on Game Pass. I don't know how much goes to MLB for license and how much goes to Sony, but the reality is, like, Microsoft pay to put games on Game Pass. So Sony are being paid for this to go free. And I
double
think,
dipping.
yeah, it's good optics from Microsoft because it's like, haha, fuck you, PlayStation, you can play it for free on Game Pass. But at the same time, Sony probably count the beans and go, you know what, it's worth taking the hit because we get X amount of million from Microsoft, we get X amount of players on PlayStation who buy the game for full price, and then we get X amount of Switch players back home in Japan who buy some crappy lesser version to play it portably for some reason. So it's all interesting business in a world where we get Minecraft made by Xbox on PlayStation, and we get PlayStation making MLB for Xbox, and GoldenEye out on multiple platforms from Rare back in Nintendo 64 days. It's a crazy time, but interesting nonetheless.
Let's be fair here. Sony have done the maths, and they're making more money by having this on Game Pass than by not.
Yeah.
That's why it's on Game Pass. That's why they've agreed to this deal.
Yeah. Well, this is why I think we've theorized before that the way Microsoft are going about it, I am confident that Game Pass will be on a PlayStation console at some point in the next decade. And we'll be able to play
I can
Halo
see a Game
and
Pass
Gears
Lite
through. Yeah, like some version of the Game Pass app will run, whether it's cloud powered or whatnot, on PlayStation. Just as these companies consolidate even more. I don't know. But less about that. We've got more stories to talk about because one of the games we can be playing on PlayStation without the risk of it going on the Game Pass is no doubt Insomniac's Wolverine. Teased last year, we got a brief trailer. There's rumours coming out, some details from Insomniac as we get some Spider-Man 2 news as well. Wolverine's launch window apparently is teased to be coming out as early as next year, 2024, with internally Insomniac very much still talking about a 2025 release, which seems more likely, but it does look like we could look at Spider-Man 2 this year, followed by Wolverine next autumn. They've also coming out reading from Jeff Grubb, who's got a lot of contacts in the games industry. On his recent podcast, he described that Insomniac are looking for a hard R-rated tone and a mature M rating. And I just want to throw it over to you guys, saying just what are your hype levels for the Wolverine game? Rob, I'll start with you.
All right, go.
I think Insomniac for me is like probably one of the best, if not best, studios doing stuff at the moment, and especially historically as well. So, like, it's a bit too far away for me to get hyped because I can't buy into something unless it's like achievable, attainable very soon. But like, I have no doubt it's going to be an amazing game, and I enjoyed the Wolverine, was it Origins, I think, game.
The tie-in back in the day, I think so. That's it's highly praised, that one.
Like, that was a really good game as well. So yeah, I'd love to get like a more kind of this generation Wolverine experience.
Yeah, well, details of the game say so far from Grubb's report is that the Wolverine game is going to be entirely divorced from, of course, Fox's X-Men movies. It's not Hugh Jackman, basically. It's going to focus on the character's adventures before he joins the superhero team. So it's very much a standalone, ironically, Wolverine origin story, just without the terrible cast and movie script that came with that movie. Like I said, it's aiming for an M-rated tone. So Richie, obviously, he's not going to be swinging through the streets of New York or anything like in the Spider-Man game.
You don't know that for certain.
I mean, he might get a piggyback one these days. But what do you want to see out of a R-rated Wolverine game as we're possibly only 18 short months away?
I really don't know. I mean, I 100% trust Insomniac to make an amazing game with this IP, to be honest. Similar to Rob, I'm not hyped for this game yet. I'm hyped for the concept of what it potentially could be. It's like, I'm looking at, Insomniac, what they did with Spider-Man, what could they do with this character, and I think there could be some really cool stuff they do. I like the fact that they're going, you know what, we're going for an M mature rating. We're not going to pull any punches in terms of the tone.
Will limbs be severed in this game?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. This is going to be a bloodbath.
Schnicked.
But I kind of like that. It means like it gives them license to do whatever they like, really, with it. They're not trying to keep this onto an E for everyone rating because it's a superhero. It's like, what would it actually be like playing as Wolverine? And yeah, I think it's going to be gory because Wolverine's got adamantium claws, he's going to be ripping limbs off people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And especially if it's in his origins, where he's a bit more feral before he's domesticated by the X-Men.
Professor X is his trainer on a leash. To what you were saying, Rob, your point is the game's, again, reportedly going to deliver a more God of War style experience rather than Spider-Man. So I think expect some more contained areas, which I guess fits in more with Wolverine's style. Like, he is just boots on the ground, messing shit up, as opposed to swinging around, saving like your friendly little granny trying to cross the street and she's about to get hit by a taxi cab.
I think it would like take a bit out of the game if like I'd have to do just like really vicious, bloodthirsty combat, and then like I have to like jump in a car and drive to the next part of the map. I think.
Yeah. He might have his bike, his cool ass
but...
motorcycle.
As someone who's like quite fatigued by open world games, I really like this concept. Like God of War technically is open world, but it's kind of not. Spider-Man works as an open world game, but just because just how quickly you can traverse the environments and how smooth that swinging is. So like, I don't want to be restricted as Spider-Man doing this.
Yep.
But as Wolverine, I think you're right, Rob. Like, you don't want to just have to like jump in a car to travel to travel halfway across the map. But you don't want this. You don't want this massive, huge thing. You just want I just want a good game.
Yeah.
Can you imagine how dangerous these would get as well? Like,
if
it is an arcade game. Like,
yeah. Again, I think we're all on the same page here. Where like asking, like, aside from the main campaign, side missions and stuff wouldn't work of a similar ilk. Like in Spider-Man, you're going around collecting backpacks and ringtones and like just doing fun stuff, whereas Wolverine's character is not. Like, he's a hardened arsehole who hates usually most people around him. So like even side quests and story campaigns,
there's a lot of Kratos in him, actually.
there is,
when
yeah.
you think about
It does line up quite well, yeah. Can kill things immediately, devastates, very rarely gets hurt. And again, if there's no other mutants in it, we shall see. Do we expect some kind of cameo at the end of Spider-Man 2? Do we think? Like a Easter egg, or maybe Wolverine shows up in one of the side missions or something?
I'm guessing there'll be nods in like a newspaper or something. I don't think you'll get an actual appearance.
Right at the end. He just
unless
swings in.
I think, yeah, I think because they are going for that hard R tone, where Spider-Man is a bit more of a everyone kind of tone. You do want it, if they're going, it depends whether they are looking as this like a connected universe thing.
Absolutely. I do think
they might just be going, you know what, we're going to tell a Wolverine story and we're going to tell Spider-Man stories. Yeah, they can be technically in the same universe. They can make reference to events and stuff, but they're not. There's no plans to overlap. That's fine.
Absolutely. I do think, though, it's safe to say, whenever it does come out, whatever it ends up looking like, it's going to sell big numbers for PlayStation. I think Insomniac are onto such a gem with Spider-Man. I wouldn't be surprised if Spider-Man 2 is like breaks all the records for most selling. It's got the IP, it's got the success of the first game. I mean, we even see now Miles Morales is still in like the top 10 sold games over Christmas, and that game is like 2-year-old nearly now. So I think Spider-Man 2, that features both Peter and Miles before like then setting up Insomniac's next title of Wolverine. I think it's onto an absolute winner. Pivoting away though to said titles, we've got interesting numbers coming out of PlayStation. God of War Ragnarok in particular has just surpassed the 11 million units sold mark, making it one of the best-selling PlayStation exclusives of all time, and that comes in tandem with some PlayStation financial reports that have came out. We like this time of year because we tend to find all big companies have to have their earnings, their investors calls, their chair boards all get together and basically crunch the numbers and see how well business is going. And this week Sony has started to release some figures. Basically they're doing pretty damn good. 7.1 million PlayStation 5 consoles were sold in just the last 3 months leading up to last Christmas, which was up 83% year on year. Just again, back to what Rob, I think you mentioned at the beginning of the episode about just availability of these things. They're now they're not in short supply. They're out there, bringing Sony's total units shipped of PS5s to 32 million, which is a pretty decent number. And they expect to ship a further 6.2 million before March this year. So the numbers are on the up, the stock's in, the games are smashing it out the park with their recent releases. God of War, you're absolutely loving it. The Last of Us is high on TV, which is bringing way more players into the console ecosystem. So I guess the big question, guys, is where does this rest? Where does this end? Does it start to slow down, or are they just on an upwards trajectory like the Nintendo Switch where there's no stopping PlayStation right now?
I think we might even see this accelerate a bit, to be honest, because we've been talking a bit about like how we still feel like we're just coming out of that transition area between between generations. We haven't had that many next gen PS5 gen exclusives. A lot of them are PS5, PS4, and as now it's easy to get your hands in stock. I think you might see this bump up a bit again when the next killer app comes out.
I mean, let's face
when
it.
when the next Spider-Man comes out and it's PS5 only. Remember how well the last Spider-Man sold. That is going to be a system seller, 100%.
Yeah, and I think we do need to factor in that they've not told us what's next. Like we know Wolverine's coming, but we don't know what nearly every other studio is working on.
I hope Wolverine's not next if it's 2024.
Sorry, like confirmed next, like that we know about. Like
Yeah,
there's
no,
nothing else outside of Spider-Man 2 at the back end of this year. But they have
Ghost
like
of Tsushima
what 12,
2?
13 studios currently cracking away on work, and they're all just silent. And like that's kind of it sucks because I want to know, but at the same time, they need stuff to be in the pipeline for like the back end. Like we don't know what we'll be playing this Christmas, guys.
Apparently not. I wonder if, because we were talking at the end of last year about like, they're going to do a big like push to start the year.
Yeah.
But obviously it's PSVR 2 is what they're trying to sell first half at the moment. Are they trying to give a bit of breathing room for PSVR 2 before they go, right, time to talk PS5. This is what you've been waiting for, guys.
Yeah, well, might as well bring it in there, but the Sony have also reportedly halved the PSVR 2 shipments forecast. We covered it on last week's show that in regards to PSVR 2, we've poked holes plenty of times, and I think their approach to this one, it's too expensive. They've not really marketed it. The game launch lineup is lacking severely, and now it seems that they're reporting that forecast shipments have been halved. And I think we mentioned on last week's show actually that you can still get a pre-order now, which means they're not out of stock anywhere. They're not short supply like the PS5 console was. And even though early reviews are starting to come out where journalists have been able to get hands on, and again, the tech is fantastic, I can just see this, again, I think we've said time and time again, but even internally it appears that PlayStation are happy to kind of wind the neck a little bit in when it comes to how well this is going to do. Any moves on PSVR 2 for you two? Or exactly the same?
What we've been saying, really, doesn't it? Like, it's very, very expensive. It's very niche, and I think they've priced lots of people out with their approach to the like not porting over titles as well. So yeah, can't say I'm surprised.
Yeah, I'm absolutely not surprised by this at all. It's literally what we've been saying. I think we've kind of hit the nail on the head. It's awesome tech, decent game library, admittedly. These some gaps,
game library though.
Yeah, there's some new stuff and there's the potential for stuff going forward, but it's not quite there for the price you have to pay. And it's like it's not as enticing as I think Sony think it should be. However, I do think there might be a future here still, eventually. If they don't do like what with the PSVR to PSVR 2, where they kind of just like ripped up the rulebook and went, we're starting again. If PSVR 2 just kind of continues through PS5 into the PS6 generation, and this could just be a slow burn thing.
Yeah, I mean, if the forecast...
If they find a way to bring the price down over time, your game library's just going to keep growing as long as they commit to it.
Yeah, if the forecast for that to be a slow burn, then that's understandable. If they put that much in R&D that they know over the next decade this is going to become like the mainstay PSVR unit for families, like as the 32 million PS5s are in the wild, and maybe in several years' time after purchasing the console, you think, you know what, I'll treat myself to a supplement of VR. It could work. I could see myself picking one up in maybe 2 years in a Black Friday bundle deal. But for me...
£250 with Call of the Mountain.
Yeah.
I always fancy playing that.
But for me, as like a hardcore PlayStation fan, I want to see them support it, because at the moment, we've just mentioned all the studios. They've got how many AAA studios internally? And seemingly there's only Guerrilla who are working on a first-party game. And beyond like that lineup, we don't know anything. Like if you come out and say Naughty Dog and are doing an Uncharted one in that world, you've got Insomniac are working on that. Sucker Punch are working on a Ghost of Tsushima game where you hold the samurai sword and you get to do the blades and the moves. Like things like that should really be happening.
Is it better?
But they're not. But that's the thing with VR. You've always got that different experience. But I need the proof that they're backing it with their own money in their own studios. I don't need little indie guys coming and doing Vacation Simulator where you pack a suitcase and pretend to fly a helicopter. I need a reason to spend more than my PS5. I've just made up a game there, yeah.
Yeah.
I need the company trying to sell me on this to sell me on it. And as a big PlayStation fan, they haven't done enough to merit the price so far. And I think that's where a lot of the audience are at, a lot of the industry's at. Like even the people I listen to on a weekly basis, they'll probably get free units sent annoyingly from PlayStation to test out and play. Even they're not sold on it, and they're getting the damn hardware for free. So how are the average Joes like us out here expecting to put that money down when they're just not doing enough?
Well, I think the fact that they've revised the forecast means they completely they misunderstood the market here.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I do think it is that price point. I think it is an absolute killer.
Yeah.
Because my honest take on the price point is, yeah, you have to have more money than sense, or be an absolute VR enthusiast.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to talk about like marketing, we'll pivot into one of our final stories of the week here. The Live from PS5 marketing campaign, which is a brilliant marketing campaign. It's gone up, and we've seen stuff on social media, pardon me, where there's basically a fake PlayStation studio talks about all these things happening around the world. There's giant axes showing up in capital cities. We've got giant PS5s in Dubai. We've got clips of Aloy and stuff running around in the world. And it's basically showcasing all of their tentpole flagship games in like a real world environment, like it's a hilarious news report. No mention of VR. This is less than 1 month from VR coming out, and their marketing budget is going on a giant axe in London, a giant PlayStation in Dubai, nothing to do with VR. Which
a giant axe in London for a game that's already sold 11 million copies last year.
Yeah, and it does just make me think like if they're not even backing it internally, like unless we're going to see like now we're in February, we're going to see some massive kickoff. This console comes out in less than two and a bit weeks, guys. And this VR console headset, nothing. I've seen no billboards for it. I've seen no YouTube ads for it. And we cover it. We cover PlayStation news. We literally scrape the barrel to find all these stories every week. And other than the forecast internally being reduced by half, there's nothing. So, either way, cool ad campaign though. I do like seeing it.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys saw the little Uncharted potential reference in there. It's not like it's story of its own thing, but throughout the video, it showed you Horizon, it showed you Stray, it showed you clips, as I said, from other titles in the game. And there was a girl, kind of Indiana Jones style, with a torch in a cave. And it's the only clip in the entire trailer or the advert that is showing off an IP that presumably doesn't exist, which has now got people thinking, is it another Uncharted on the horizon? Some people speculate it might be Tomb Raider, but then the whole Square Enix embrace about, I don't think Tomb Raider is iconic to PlayStation.
Why would they put Tomb Raider in a Sony first party thing?
It's not just first party, it's got some different deals. I think Callisto Protocol is in there as well, but they did have a marketing campaign with Callisto Protocol, so it's not quite just first party, but for the majority it is, and it just seems like there's this little adventurer Uncharted inspired thing, but it is definitively a woman in it. So like again, that's one of the announcements they could talk about, but I just thought it was an interesting little tidbit in there to brush up on.
I've seen like that campaign everywhere. Like I think it was doing The Last of Us. Like it was played basically in every single ad break for.
I've seen billboards now.
Yeah.
In the advert, I don't know if you noted it as well. Is at the end when they cut back to the studio, their desk is a giant PlayStation 5. Like their newsroom desk is a PS5 on its side, which is quite cool. But aside from that, final story of the week, The Last of Us doing gangbuster numbers. The show's fantastic, and as I've mentioned, definitely check out the ClickerCast where we round up the show each week. But in regards to The Last of Us Part 1, the PC release was imminent. We mentioned the Star Wars delay. The Last of Us Part 1 on PC is also getting a delay of 25 days, pushing it back from its initial launch date, and it'll now release on the 28th of March instead of the 3rd of March, which I do think is about a week after the show finishes on HBO and Sky here in the UK, so it'll still benefit from sales when it comes out on PC. Plus the modders will want to go to town on it, so we've got Mr. Blobby attacking Ellie and whatnot instead of bloaters. We'll see some wacky shit like that.
Oh, I want to see that.
As like Bill, that'll be a thing.
Oh, absolutely. Any crazy thoughts for characters in The Last of Us? Who would you like to see hunting things down? I know Mr. Blob. Now I've said Mr. Blobby out loud, that's all I can think about as a bloater. Coming out the gym doors in Part 1 and throwing acid balls at them. Blobby.
I mean, we could go
into like as Joel. That has to be one.
And Ellie's Grogu
as a bloater.
Yeah.
Thomas the Tank Engine.
Someone always modifies Thomas the Tank Engine in there. Crash Bandicoot's going to be in there as a runner or something.
That would be funny. But yeah, we'll get loads of fun stories to come out of that one. But that has been it for this week's episode of Talking the PS, your weekly PlayStation show, where we round up all of the weekly PlayStation and video game news right here on youtube.com/Helix Plays Games, and up there on the digital cloud on your podcast preference of choice. Don't forget to check out all the great shows. XPass, our weekly Xbox podcast, goes live every Monday. Yesterday, for you to find out on the channel. Our weekly live streams every Thursday. And of course, ClickerCast, our weekly podcast where me and Richie get together and round up every episode of HBO's The Last of Us adaptation right here on the channel, live with you, the community. So don't forget to join us and check that out along the way. My name's been Chris.
I've been Richie.
And I've been Rob.
And we've been Helix Plays Games. Thank you very much for watching, everyone. And remember, play it wherever makes you the happiest. Bye.